Hello viewers and welcome to our channel. Don't forget to like our video, subscribe to our channel if you did not, and click on the bell icon to get further notifications on our videos. Without wasting any more time, let's move on to our topic for today. In today's video, we're actually going to look at a mystery that happened in nowhere other than Japan back in 1936. This whole event happened in Aomori, Japan, where a man named Yoshie Shiratori was actually accused of murder. He was actually forced to confess that he committed this murder when he did not actually do anything. He was put in the Aomori prison and was tortured so badly by the guards. Back in this era, that was a very normal thing to happen in prison. One day at 5:30 a.m. he took his very first move. He knew that there was always a 15 minutes gap between each patrol time. Therefore, he actually used this opportunity to break free. What did he actually do? He used a metal wire that he smuggled from the bath house to open the lock. This metal wire was actually found in buckets that the inmates used to bathe. So he actually used this metal wire to pick his way all the way to free himself. He did the same thing for all the remaining doors. But anyhow, he was actually still within the search perimeter, meaning he could get caught at any time. At 5:45 a.m., just 15 minutes after he escaped, the guards actually saw Yoshie fast asleep, but it was actually not him. It was just a trick that he played on them. He used a pile of loose floorboards to trick the guards, giving them the impression that he was actually asleep. It was only the very next morning that they actually realized that he was totally gone and he was not in the prison anymore. What happened then? Did he get caught? Yes, he actually got caught 3 days later trying to steal supplies from a hospital. This caused him to be sentenced to life prison, where he actually left his daughter and his wife behind. 6 years later, during the World War II, in 1942, Yoshie was transferred to the Akita prison. There, he was treated even more worse compared to how he was treated in the Aomori prison. He was forced to do manual labor and he was beaten up even worse, as I mentioned. He was made to sleep in a hard concrete floor in the severe winter cold. He had a specially made confinement solitary cell which was very small and it had a very high ceiling. The walls were covered with copper sheet which were very smooth, so there was no way that he could actually escape this time. There was almost no sunlight during the day. In that small special cell of his, there was only a small sealed skylight from above. This time, he was handcuffed at all times to ensure that he does not escape. What happened there was, in spite of all the guards actually beating him up and torturing him so bad, there was this head guard who actually pitied him. He did not torture him or beat him as how the other guards did, but in fact, he showed compassion to him. He also checked on him every time to make sure that he was alright. His second escape was on June 15th on a stormy night. They only found his handcuffs there and nothing else. You may have a question like, how did he escape? Because the walls were all made of copper slits which were very smooth and there was no way for him to actually climb up. It actually turned out to be him placing his arms and his feet against the walls. So he climbed all the way up, like the Jackie Chan movies we watch. While looking at this, he was definitely an expert climber. But how did he actually escape? What he would do was, night after night, he would actually climb up the wall and loosen the skylight framing which was actually about to rot. So when something is actually about to rot, it's easier to be removed, definitely. So this actually helped him to escape So every night he does this, and once he's done, he immediately climbs back down the same way he climbed up and pretends that nothing happened to prevent any sort or a single suspicion from the guards. He waited and waited patiently until this one night was a really stormy night. So he used this chance or this opportunity to escape and break free from the cell. Remember, there was this head guard which was actually very compassionate towards him. Yes, 3 months later, Yoshie appeared to him in his house, asking for help. What did the chief guard do is he invited him in, gave him some food, and he listened to whatever Yoshie was actually telling him. Yoshie actually explained that he was alright to be in prison, but he couldn't take all the beating and all the torturing that he went through. Therefore, he escaped. He was even willing to hand himself to the Justice Department to tell them how corrupt and barbaric the Japanese prison system was, and it definitely had to be reformed. Well, and also he thought that was the only way that he could actually end up being with his family. But what actually happened? He was actually betrayed by this head guard. What did this head guard do? When Yoshie actually went to the toilet, he used this opportunity to call the police and get him caught. So he went back to prison and he was given 3 years of life sentence. You may ask me, life sentence? Usually life sentence is like throughout your whole life. But back in Japan, when they say or when life sentence is actually mentioned, it actually means for a 10-year period. So now adding to that, he has another 3 more years, which makes 13 years of life sentence. Yoshie actually requested to be sent to the Tokyo prison where it is much warmer, but they did not listen to his request and they rejected it. They sent him to the Abashiri prison, the northernmost prison in Japan where no one has ever escaped. Back in 1943, when it was winter, it was unbearably cold and it was below freezing point, to the extent where the miso soup and the soy sauce given to the inmates end up frozen. So what actually happened to Yoshie in this prison? He was handcuffed and he was thrown into the prison with summer clothes. Imagine, it is winter but he was in his summer clothes, so it was really freezing cold. He tried to force himself towards the guard but he was pushed and beaten up. But what did he do? He vowed to the guards that he would escape prison as always. To prove this, he actually broke free from the handcuffs in front of the guards. This incident actually shocked all of them. They then realized that Yoshie had an incredible and supernatural strength. So first, he had the ability, or he was able to pick the locks. Second, he was able to climb smooth walls like a lizard. And thirdly, he has supernatural strength. A new cell was actually built for Yoshie. It was made up of steel fixture bars, which were made smaller than his body, specially made solid iron handcuffs and leg cuffs for him, which each weighed 20 kgs. So imagine how heavy that would have been. He could barely move. His hands were right behind his back, and there was no keyholes to be found in those handcuffs, so he could not pick or open the handcuffs just by anything. Then how would he take his bath or do anything or eat and stuff? These handcuffs can only be opened by special metal specialists. Only come to open it once every few weeks. And basically it's a 2-hour process. So Yoshie can only take his bath whenever his handcuffs are removed, which left him with no choice because his calf wounds were infested with maggots. Worried that he would actually regain strength to escape again, they actually gave him half portion of his food. He did not get his food in full portion like the other prisoners, so having his hands and legs handcuffed, how would he actually move? He growls like a dog all the way to just go and get his food. It was spring in August. One night, a guard heard a shuffling sound right up on the roof. What could have it been? The guard rushed to check on all the prisoners and found that Yoshie was missing. He found that the futon bed and garments were neatly folded and kept together with his hand and leg cuffs. Only then they realized that he escaped and he totally disappeared. But how did he escape from his Abashiri prison? It was actually a 6-month-long process. This time, his technique for escaping was a little different and maybe you would have never heard before. He used the soup that was given to him, the miso soup. What he would do is he would always save up a little miso soup and keep it at the corner. When he realizes that the guards are not there at that point, he gets the remaining miso soup and splashes it on the steel frame. Not forgetting his scarves, he dabs on them too. But how can this actually help him to escape? To get a little scientific, salt oxidizes metal. So in this case, it actually oxidized the bolts and the screws, causing it to corrode and loosen. This made it easier for Yoshie to escape. As mentioned earlier, the openings there were really small and were smaller than his body. So how could have he escaped when the openings were really small? And talking about smaller than his body. What did he do was, he actually dislocated his shoulder and slid through the opening. And then he climbed through a broken window and just escaped. In August 1945, it happened so that America won over Japan during the World War II. So Yoshie thought that they will not be hunting him down anymore. So what did he do was, he lived in an abandoned mine in Hokkaido. How did he survive there? He ate berries, he ate wild rabbits, he learned how to catch fish just looking at how the bears do it. He lived 2 years in isolation and just all alone in that abandoned mine. So one day he actually decided to go into the village. He realized that there was so much changes after America took over. All this actually shocked him. It happened so that when he read the newspaper there, it was the Hiroshima&Nagasaki atomic bombs. So that actually happened a year before he came out to the village. So he actually left Abashiri and went to Sapporo. He saw a tomato in a nearby field and thought of going and taking it to just eat. But what happened? He was spotted by the farmer. And the farmer actually thought that he was the local thief who always goes and steals his fruits and whatever crops that he plants. So what happened is, they scuffled, they fought. And by accident, Yoshie, for the first time, killed someone. So then the police ended up catching him and he was given that sentence. In 1947, he was sent to the Sapporo prison. In this prison, it was quite different. What happened there was, he was under the care of 6 guards 24/7. So there was no way he could escape because the guards were always there with him. So the cell was reinforced with doors, bars, ceilings and windows. Every single opening that they had in that cell were made smaller than his head because there was no chance he would actually dislocate his skull. Every time when he went to take his bath, they always inspected every single opening there to ensure that he doesn't plan an escape or he hasn't plotted anything to escape. At some point, Yoshie always stayed in bed and he refused to wake up or respond whenever the guards tried to wake him up. And again, what happened was, he escaped one morning when the guards actually realized. But how did they actually find out that he escaped? After getting so fed up of every time calling him out and him not responding to them, they got so angry and they just came up to a point where they wanted to punish him. So they came into the cell and that was when they actually realized that he was gone. They paid attention to every single opening there, but they forgot the bottom. But how did he actually escape this time? As the bottom was neglected, Yoshie removed the bolted floorboards and dug his way through using whatever he had, and this took him 1 month. He put the floorboards back every time he was done to avoid any sort of suspicion. While doing this, left the guards with no clue that he actually dug a hole to escape, and also him being consistent of not waking up whenever the guards called out. So what he actually does is he puts the floorboards in a way to show that he is actually still there sleeping, but just that he's not responding. So in that period of time, he's actually digging all his way down using whatever he has. Back in 1948, in Japan, cigarette was actually very expensive and it was considered a luxury item, and only rich people owned it. But what happened was a police officer actually shared a cigarette with him, leaving Yoshie really shocked by his act of kindness. Being overwhelmed with this act of kindness by this police officer, and by him thinking that he's not gonna trust any more police officers after what the chief guard actually did to him, this incident really shocked him. What did he decide to do was, he was honest to the police officer and actually told him that he was the person who escaped from prison for 4 times, and as usual he got caught. But this time it was a lot more different compared to the previous times that he actually got caught. He did admit that he actually killed the farmer out of self-defense and no other intentions. Therefore, there was no more death sentence for him, but he was to be put in prison for 20 years. This time, as he requested earlier, he was sent to the Tokyo prison. There, he was really shocked at how all the prisoners were treated, because they had rules, they had certain things to follow, and they were treated so well. They were respected, though they were prisoners back then. In the Tokyo prison, Yoshie was at peace and he did not plan on escaping anymore. Therefore, he was a model prisoner and he had no more concerns of being beaten up or treated badly or being tortured. Nothing. After 14 years, finally he was free and he went back to Amoni. He was reunited with his daughter, the only family member he had then. Since this whole incident, Yoshie Shiratori is known as the anti-hero in Japan. So that's all for today. Don't forget to join us in our next video. Thank you for your patience and thank you for watching.